Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you are watching News X World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Israel has now deported 171 Gaza flotilla activists, including climate activist Greta Thunberg. Simultaneously, Hamas officials held talks in Egypt with Israel under the US-backed Trump plan aiming to secure hostage releases, though no breakthroughs have been reported. US President Donald Trump has stated that negotiations over the proposed peace plan for Gaza have been very successful and expects the first phase of the plan to be completed by the end of the week. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigned just weeks after his appointment. This also came hours after he unveiled the first names of his government. The French stocks dropped sharply, and as did the euro, following news of this resignation. The United Nations Human Rights Council will decide on an EU-backed investigation into atrocities in Afghanistan targeting violations by the Taliban and foreign troops. While the EU seeks to prepare evidence for future criminal proceedings, the US opposes the probe's jurisdiction over American forces, and China has expressed doubts about the investigation. Pope Leo has issued a decree stripping the Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for the Works of Religion, of its exclusive control over Vatican investments, rolling back a key 2022 financial reform by late Pope Francis. This move marks a shift from Francis's centralization efforts aimed at curbing corruption and restoring financial transparency. Thai Prime Minister Anand Chanvirakul has ordered urgent flood relief after heavy rains killed 12 people and impacted over 100,000 households across 16 provinces, with Uttarakhand province suffering the worst losses according to the local interior ministry. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has stated that Hungary should not adopt the currency euro as the EU is disintegrating, warning against tightening ties to the bloc despite Hungary's economic dependence on it. Orban's stance contrasts with opposition leader Peter Magyar's platform to move towards euro adoption. Italian Airlines ITA Airways has announced that it will extend the suspension of flights to and from Tel Aviv, Israel until the end of 2025, including 2 flights scheduled for New Year's Day on 2026, according to the company's statements. The Italian airline, part of the Lufthansa Group, cited ongoing concerns as the reason for the extension. Now we move on. Israel has deported 171 activists today, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, after detaining them during an aid flotilla heading to Gaza. The Foreign Ministry has confirmed the deportation in a post on X, describing the group as provocativores from the smooth flotilla. The deportees, citizens of Greece, Italy, France, the United States, and other countries, were sent to Greece and Slovakia. The activists had been detained for attempting to break Israel's blockade on Gaza by delivering aid. Meanwhile, Israel has accused the flotilla of being a political mission supporting Hamas. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Ali Mohammed Bushbak. He's an independent Palestinian researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us again. Good to see you. Ali, what more can you tell us about this evolving situation?
Thank you so much for having me. The thing is good news that Israel is going to deport more than 171 of the activists. Samud flotilla activists. Among of them, Greta, despite the news media reported that Israeli soldiers during the detention, they are insulted the activist, and they are obligated here to act some things out of her ability or her willingness. So the things make a scandal for Israel. And also today there is a news release that Spain is going to quote Israel with regard to the flotilla attack and consider it as a violating the human rights and the international law. Especially they are intercepting during they are in international water. So also now Israel now is facing a big hurdles according to several of experts in this field. One of them that's the flotilla, and we have seen also the huge protest in Netherlands that take to the street, and we have seen a several of protests entire the world widely disseminated in entire the world. Condemning the Israelis' action with regard to the flotilla attack. And now we are waiting for the tomorrow. I guess the Israelis delegation is coming to visit Cairo, and Hamas delegation is here nowadays in Egypt in Cairo to negotiate about the first phase of the peace. The Trump's peace. So Israel have never been released or departure these activists. So the flotilla activists without the international pressure, and after the scandal that the Israeli soldiers have been committed during their during their detention of the activists. And we have seen that the Israeli minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, when he accused them and insulted them, describing them as a terrorist because they have done nothing to except just only surviving and except helping and saving the civilians so desperate from and suffering from the famine and starvation because of the Israelis' blockade on the ground. On the ground in Gaza, there is a several of events happened since morning. Israel's bombardment is continuous and ongoing up to now. The clashes is still ongoing on the ground. Despite all the international community have a perspective or have a positive atmosphere. They are so optimistic about reaching to ceasefire between Gaza and Israel within coming days. But on the ground, the situation is the same, remaining by the Israelis' bombardment and invaded several of area in Gaza.
Thank you very much, Ali, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the Middle East. According to Lebanese state media, an Israeli strike on a car in Zebdine, a village in southern Lebanon, has killed a husband and a wife. According to reports, the man has been identified as Hassan Atwi, who was wounded and lost his sight when Israel blew up hundreds of pagers and walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah members. Last year, his wife Zainab Raslan has also been killed in the strike. State media also reported that the couple had 2 sons who were killed during the year-long hostilities. The Lebanese Health Ministry has confirmed the strikes and the deaths. The ministry has also said that 1 other person was injured in the strike. Here's what the mayor of the Lebanese village has to say about this.
عدو إسرائيلي عدو وحش لا يمتلك أي نوع من الإنسانية بيستهدف سيارة بتستشهد هي وبيستشهد زوجها الكفيف العينتين.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Ali Muhammad Abushbak. He's an independent Palestinian researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for staying with us. Now looking at this news coming in from Lebanon, it seems like in Lebanon this is continuing, as well as the situation in Palestine, just like how we were discussing. What more can you tell us about the situation in Lebanon?
It's a common event happened continuously since the ceasefire have been, reached to the deal to ceasefire with Hezbollah and Lebanon last year. So Israel have never adhered to the deal and to ceasefire. Continuously, Hezbollah it's under the attack, and continuously there is a bombardment in Lebanon. Not only Lebanon, Syria. Also, we have seen last time in Iran and Qatar. So that's exacerbated the situation and targeting couples that showing that Israel is not adhered to the international law and especially the Geneva Convention, especially Fourth Geneva Convention, which protect the civilians despite that Israel acting with the impunity, without any morale and without any shame to kill civilians and kill couples during their targeting. So Israel has no limitation for its action and has nothing to do except just only killing the civilians and killing the children and women. We have a simple example of what happened in Gaza, and they are flaunting with these things, especially Israel, talking about among one Palestinian military, there is around 4 or 5 civilians in Gaza as the casualties. So they are focusing on one targeting, doesn't care about the casualties, about the civilians. In my opinion, about the future of Gaza, about the Trump peace plan, if it's going to success, I guess that will impact the situation in Lebanon, and that will make some ceasefire or some calm in that area. But if it's going to sabotaging by Israel or by Hamas as well, that will lead the whole region or area to comprehensive confrontation or war. That's what we don't want to be happen, and we wish that will not never happen.
And Ali, with the ongoing hostilities, how can both sides work towards de-escalation, and what role can any country as an international actor play in preventing further civilian casualties?
The international community is acting with a silent, as a blind. They don't see anything. There is no, the guard for the human rights, and there is no guard for the international morale. It's all of that. It's all of that. It's like a double standard. What is happening? There is no value for the civilians' life in Middle East. And this is what Edward Said, he mentioned in his Orientalism, and he's mentioned that during analyzing the discourse of Western media, they are putting the civilians of Middle East in the low part as a second level of the civilians. They don't have a right to survive. They don't have a right to be acting like a human being. So among of these things, also the tension in Lebanon, it's not new, and I guess the people have been tolerated. But I am afraid that also with the Yemen we have seen. But I am also, as I mentioned, afraid that will lead for a comprehensive confrontation. All of that based on the progress in Gaza and the negotiation today or tomorrow that is going to carry. Hopefully, this peace will be happen in this area, and we will see that social, political coexistence, peaceful between both of them.
Yes, indeed. We will be keeping eye on that. And thank you very much, Ali Muhammad Bushbak, for always joining us and sharing your insight from the Middle East. Now we move on to our next news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russia is trying to sabotage Ukraine's domestic gas production. He's also confirmed that recent strikes on Russian infrastructure used Ukrainian-made missiles. This comes as Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack on Ukraine, killing at least 5 people, including 4 in Lviv. Fire broke out, damaging infrastructures and leaving parts of Lviv without power. Meanwhile, Ukraine has said that overnight attack killed Russia's Belgorod region and knocked out power to thousands. Crews have restored supply to most, but 5,400 people remain without electricity. In Russia's south, a fire broke out at a security building in the Tuapse oil refinery after a drone attack. Let's listen in to what the Ukrainian president has said.
Останні дні Україна застосовує виключно українські вироби, не тільки дрони. І по тим влучанням, я думаю, можна зрозуміти людям із тих фрагментів, які є в соціальних мережах, де є застосування дронів, а де є застосування не дронів. В принципі, американці розблокували можливості закупівлі патріотів, не тільки ракет, але й систем. І питання виключно в грошах. Тобто є плюси, бачите, є і мінуси. Як тільки щось ми там дипломатично розблокували, ну, з'являються інші дефіцитні речі. Тому я розраховую на заморожені активи, скажу вам чесно, дивлячись, з якої швидкості з'являються гроші. Так?
The Netherlands have a positive attitude towards the use of the frozen assets, but at the same time, everybody also agrees that there are legal and financial risks, and certainly the Belgian minister also publicly, the Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever, made a very strong point on that, and I think he is right in that sense that the risks cannot be on Belgium alone. So that we have to, in the European Union and also within the G7, we have to share the risk, and if we can really share the risks and put Belgium off the hook, so to speak, I think then we can proceed forward very quickly with the frozen assets.
For this discussion, we are joined by Raymond Vickery. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Raymond, for joining us again. Now, we've seen that the strikes are escalating from both sides, and how significant is this that Ukraine has started attacking Russia with its own developed missiles?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think it's quite significant. You know, in order to wage peace, just like you wage war, you've got to have two things. You've got to have a strategy, and you have to have partners to be able to bring peace. Unfortunately, the United States has been the leader, so-called leader of the free world, and would be expected to provide this leadership role, but the United States has neither strategy and has really disregarded many of those nations that would be partners. Europe is in much the same situation. So I think that President Zelensky has drawn the obvious conclusion that Ukraine basically has to rely upon itself. You know, in 1994, the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom all guaranteed the security of Ukraine, but that did not come to pass. What most people don't realize, and I understand it quite fully since I was in Ukraine at the end of the Soviet era, is that Ukraine was the very heart of defense production for the Soviet Union before its collapse. So it has great technical resources on its own to be able to supply some of the war material which is needed for defense. It's unfortunate, though, that neither the United States nor Europe have been able to pull together a strategy and a coherent group of partners in order to stop this worst breach of the UN Charter. Really, Putin is a throwback to the old traditional way of looking at greatness of empire, and that is if you can take over somebody else's territory and their people, then that adds to your greatness. Peter the Great, Alexander the Great, he wants to be Putin the Great. So hundreds of thousands of people have now been killed or wounded in regard to this. One would only hope that the move by President Zelensky to rely more on Ukrainian production of defense materials will be supported by the United States, Europe, indeed the other great democracies. India has a role to play here because of its unique connections with Russia. But this is absolutely an atrocious breach of international principles, the worst since World War II, and we are far from having both a strategy and the coordination among freedom-loving nations in order to bring this to an end.
Yes, indeed, Raymond, you've brought it up already, but U.S. is, it seems like things are escalating towards another direction, which U.S. Seemed to be or was supposed to negotiate earlier, or was showing determination. President Trump was showing determination. So what are the potential, what could have been the risks and consequences of the U.S. providing Ukraine with intelligence on target inside of Russia, and if it were to provide Tomahawk missiles?
Well, you know, at this point, the United States is the indispensable nation for bringing peace and prosperity. Many don't like that, but that's just the fact, both in terms of military production, material, technology, economic wherewithal. Perhaps that will change in the future, but that's the situation right now. So one would hope that even though our President Trump is very mercurial, he's up and down one day, he's good friends with Putin the next day, Putin is disappointed him. He's going to solve this problem on day one. It goes on and doesn't have a strategy. One would hope that he will be able to allow the coordination between the other great democracies of the world in order to have a comprehensive approach. We don't have that at this time. And so this war and the terrible death toll which is taking place on both sides, and even more than that, the potential for setting off a nuclear confrontation can be abated. But at this point, we have a transactional president. He wants to get whatever he can for himself out of a situation. And we have not had the leadership step forward here, which is necessary to bring peace and prosperity to that part of the world again.
And lastly, you have also indeed mentioned that, you know, it seems like President Trump is one day disappointed by Putin and the next day he's friends with Putin, but it seems like he's warming up towards Ukraine. So how might this President Trump's shift in policy towards Ukraine affect NATO's unity and its strategic approach to the conflict of Russia and Ukraine?
Well, it's very helpful, of course, and one thing you can say about President Trump is he does seem to have a desire for peace, and you can also say that he's educatable, and that is he's learned that rolling out the red carpet in Alaska for Trump got him nowhere. All it did was give some legitimacy to President Putin, who's been responsible for this invasion and the deaths of so many people. So yes, it's a good development that he is seeing more clearly now. However, he also seems to have one foot in the direction of being able to disassociate himself, of trying to put the blame on Europe for not doing more, or putting the blame anywhere else he can find it. So I think it's unclear at this point where President Trump will land, but certainly he's seeing more clearly now than he did at the first part of his presidency that this Russian invasion of Ukraine is not a simple situation. It's not a real estate transaction. It's not two people, Putin and Trump, getting together and making a deal in which he comes out on top. So yes, it's a good development, but we've got a long way to go before we have the kind of strategy and coalition which can bring peace to Ukraine.
Yes. With that, I would like to thank Raymond for joining us and sharing that insight all the way from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for joining us. Now we move on to Europe. In France, far-right leaders Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella are demanding fresh legislative elections after the resignation of Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu. Speaking in Paris, Le Pen said that the country has reached the end of the road and urged a return to the polls so that voters could decide the next step instead of political maneuvering. National Rally President Bardella supported the call, warning that any Macron-backed government would lack legitimacy and risk leaving France without a budget. He argued impeachment has no chance of succeeding given the power dynamics in the parliament. The pressure comes as President Emmanuel Macron weighs his options amid deep political divisions in France. Let's listen into what Jordan Bardella has said.
Il n'y a maintenant plus d'autre choix que de revenir devant les Français. Donc notre position, elle ne va pas varier dans ces prochains jours. Elle a toujours été la même. Nous considérons que tout gouvernement, aussi macroniste soit-il, n'aura aucune légitimité pour agir. Plus le président de la République patiente, plus il prend le risque de laisser la France sans budget et de prolonger l'instabilité. Donc plus tôt nous retournons aux urnes et plus tôt nous permettront aux Français de se choisir une majorité. Plus tôt, nous pourrons remettre le pays sur le chemin de la stabilité. Le président de la République refuse toute forme de rupture sur le fond. Il est évidemment l'homme qui, derrière le Premier ministre démissionnaire, tire les ficelles et a désigné très certainement les ministres. Donc maintenant, stop, il faut que la plaisanterie s'arrête. Il faut qu'on revienne aux urnes et que la France retrouve un fonctionnement démocratique qui soit un fonctionnement démocratique sain, stable et...
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Alexander Seal. He's a French and British journalist, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Alexander, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, given the far-right leaders' call for fresh legislative elections, how do you view the current political legitimacy of President Macron's government, especially after the resignation of the Prime Minister?
France is facing an unprecedented political meltdown. Sébastien Lecornu was appointed Prime Minister on the 9th of September 2025, so 27 days ago. And Lecornu has resigned, making him the 5th Prime Minister since 2022 and the 7th Prime Minister since 2017 when Emmanuel Macron was elected. His resignation came only short time after his cabinet was announced. He announced his cabinet yesterday, which has already drawn fire for recycling ministers from previous Macron governments. So Lecornu is gone. France has no functioning government, only a caretaker presidency, and the president rapidly losing his authority. But Lecornu's government was stillborn. It was named yesterday. It was criticized from when it was announced, not only from the opposition, but also from Macron's own camp. Bruno Retailleau, who is and was the interior minister in a few Macron's governments, publicly condemned this cabinet as incoherent and politically tone-deaf. So Lecornu realized he couldn't command a parliamentary majority. There is no majority in the National Assembly. His government was going to be censored by the far-left party. So really, Lecornu had no other possibility, and he decided to resign today. So it's really a historical moment for France.
And Alexander, lastly, how likely do you think fresh election could solve or would resolve France's current political impasse?
Well, both sides are demanding a reset, but for very different reasons. The far left, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon and the Nouveau Front Populaire, insists that Macron had lost all democratic legitimacy. They're calling for a citizens' government built around social spending, wage hikes, and ecological transition, but they refuse any cooperation with Macron's centrists. The far right, led by Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, has gone further. They are now demanding Macron's resignation and also members from the Les Républicains party, the conservatives, want Macron to resign as president, but appoint also the far right wants a national rally prime minister to reflect the popular will. So it's a direct challenge to the presidency. Macron has no other choice. He can appoint a caretaker prime minister to keep the state functioning, but it would be seen as weak. This government, a new prime minister could be censored. He can dissolve the National Assembly like he did last summer, and with the polls suggesting that the national rally could win, or he can negotiate a temporary share of power. This happened previously in France, but will it work? We don't know. So Macron has lots of possibilities, and lots of people are urging Macron to speak on TV about the current situation.
Oh, that is very insightful. Thank you very much, Alexander Seal, for joining us and sharing your insight as a French and British journalist all the way from London. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.